So far, we've seen Mr. Magoo, Mickey Mouse, and the Muppets act out A Christmas Carol, while the Jetsons did their own loose adaptation, and the Ghostbusters interfered with the story. How will the Flintstones do their own version of A Christmas Carol? It turns out that they decided to follow Mr. Magoo's example and have the characters perform it as a play. You would think that Fred would be cast in the role of Bob Cratchit, like Mickey, Kermit, and even George, but instead he is cast as Scrooge. Throughout the movie, Mr. Slate states that he should have been cast as Scrooge, but he's reminded that would have been typecasting. Instead, he is cast as Jacob Marley. Barney is both Cratchit and Fezziwig. Betty is Mrs. Cratchit. Pebbles is their daughter. Dino is their pet and the ghost of Christmas future. And Bam Bam is Tiny Tim. As for Wilma, well, a run-on gag is that the Bedrock bug is going around, and a lot of people are catching it, including the actors. So Wilma has to play the ghost of Christmas past, Belle, and one of the charity collectors. She is also the stage manager and costume designer. Boy, Wilma is sure wearing a lot of hats. The Flintstones Christmas Carol has always been among my least favorite versions of A Christmas Carol. Don't get me wrong, the characters do a great job at adapting the story in the Flintstones universe. The Bedrock bug run-on gag is pretty funny, and it's fun to see Philo Courts from the Flintstone Kids as an adult, even though I always thought he would have been a scientist rather than a cop. The problem with it is the side plot. You see, Fred got a swelled head ever since he was cast in the lead. He gets so caught up in rehearsing and stardom that he starts to act like a jerk, always bragging about being the star. He even forgets about buying presents for Wilma and Pebbles, though to his credit, he does feel bad about it and runs out to buy some just before the play. There was one other thing he forgot to do: pick up Pebbles from the daycare center. Before he went to work, Fred had to drop off his daughter at the daycare center. Wilma has to arrive at the theater early, so she tells Fred he has to pick up Pebbles at 4 o'clock. The problem is, he didn't hear it. Too busy rehearsing his lines. So when 4 o'clock came, Fred forgets to pick up Pebbles. Though that's kind of a stretch, seeing as he didn't even know he was supposed to pick her up. Wilma berates Fred when he shows up at the theater, and throughout the production, she is furious with him. Fred does come to realize that his behavior was wrong. He tries to apologize to Wilma, but she refuses to talk to him. Even though I understand why Wilma is upset with him, I think she was a little hard on Fred. He didn't even know he was supposed to pick up Pebbles. Admittedly, he should have been paying attention to her, but at the same time, he was in a hurry to get to work. Besides, he left Pebbles at a daycare center, a perfectly safe place. Plus, Barney was able to pick her up. Even if he couldn't, the lady at the daycare center happened to have a part in the play, so she could have just brought Pebbles along. Another thing that always bugged me is that throughout the movie, the characters refer to Fred as Scrooge, and he takes it as a compliment. I get why he takes it as a compliment, since he is playing the character, but I can't understand why everyone else keeps calling him Scrooge. Do they understand anything about the character? because I don't think they do. Scrooge had a lonely childhood because his father wanted little to do with him. He was close to his sister Fan, but she died young. He worked for a great man and was at one time engaged to be married. Sadly, Scrooge became blinded by his love of money when he went into business for himself, causing Belle to break off their engagement. As a result, Scrooge became hard-hearted. He didn't care about helping the poor, saying that the surplus population would decrease if the poor who didn't want to go to the workhouse would die. He was a miser, not even spending his money on himself. It was because of his negative experience with Christmas that Scrooge developed a hatred for the holiday. Scrooge needed to be visited by his dead partner and free ghosts before he could reform. Fred Flintstone, on the other hand, landed the starring role in the play and got a fat head. He did take the time to buy presents for his wife and daughter, and tried to apologize for his actions. These are things Scrooge never would have done on his own. Fred was simply a jerk. Scrooge had a stone-cold heart. The two are hardly the same. There are better versions of A Christmas Carol, and there are way better Flintstones Christmas specials.